Hi, I'm Shord, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the casing of your Renault or Dacia Flip-key. First, I'm going to open the original before I take out the new one. Basically, we only need one tool, and that's a flathead screwdriver. We'll start as follows. If we look at the back of the key, we can see a small notch here. Insert the screwdriver there and gently pry it open a little bit until the cover comes off. Next, we see the battery. I always like to take the battery out before we continue with transferring the casing. So here as well, we place the screwdriver underneath, pry it upwards, and we'll also set this aside for now. You can now see a little screw here. You basically don't need to do anything with it. The screw has no function for transferring the casing, so you can just leave it in place. What we want now is to separate the bottom part, the plastic we see here, including the chromium, the top part from each other. And what is often easiest is to carefully run the screwdriver along these edges here. We do this very carefully, bit by bit, to prevent any possible damage. So I'm just trying to free up a little bit of space to create. And once we've reached that point, you can see it now. And you heard the click, that's your cue to split the whole thing apart. We actually see two important components. We see the key blade, which has been cut, and we see the electronics. Those are really the only two functional parts that we'll need in the new key in a moment. Here I have the bag with the new parts. And it consists of these pieces. The first thing we do is we briefly place and in the battery holder, we first place the rubber mat here. This ensures that the battery won't be affected by water later on. In addition, as I mentioned earlier, this part basically doesn't serve any function here. So when we open this up, we'll first reassemble the chrome part. So here as well, we go to the corner. For clarity, I'll set this aside for a moment. The corner on the underside. Now I place the screwdriver underneath again. And here too, I try to be careful. Just a little bit to get some movement in it until it opens up more. I'll try the other side as well. I can see that there's already some space here, which allows these two sides to come apart now. And now that that's done, I also want to go ahead and install the rubber edge. So I neatly place it on top here. I try to snap it firmly into place. This can sometimes be a bit tricky as well. Of course, he is a good size, made. But because of that, it can sometimes be a bit of a challenge to get it on properly all the way around. So you heard it click just now. That means we just need to put a screw in place, and we can tighten that. I mentioned in the intro that you only need a flathead screwdriver, but you can also choose to use a Phillips head for this. Well, this is what we have here now. And this is what we have from the original, ready to go. Very simple. We take the electronics unit and place it back in the new housing in the same spot. Of course, you have the rubber mat, and it can only stay in place properly in a few ways. But later when you close it, you'll see that here in the plastic, there are also certain notches, which means it can only fit in one way. So it will automatically correct itself in a moment in terms of position. So I'll just make sure it's properly in place here again. I make sure that all the small notches I see here in the rubber line up with the electronics. And then I put the top part back on, press the whole thing together, and I check if the buttons can be pressed properly here. Next, I put the battery back in. I make sure that the key blade is facing me and that I insert the battery like this. So first press down the backside before pushing the entire battery down completely. And we also neatly put the battery cover back in place. And then you probably haven't missed it, that the key from the original is of course already cut while the new one isn't. You can solve this in two ways. Option A is you can transfer the metal key blade from the original to the new model. This works as follows. By slightly bending the key blade here, we see a small hole appear. The hole contains a retaining pin, which essentially holds the metal key blade in place within the flip mechanism. If we tap this out, we can then remove the metal key blade from here. If you do the same with the new one, you can choose to insert the cut key blade into it and then secure the retaining pin back in place so that it can't slide out. In practice though, this can often be quite a hassle. It can be pretty difficult to simply transfer your key blade. That's why we often recommend just going to a locksmith and having your new key blade cut again. It usually doesn't cost very much, but it does save you a lot of trouble. And that's how you transfer your Renault or Dacia Flip-key to a new casing. Hopefully everything went well with transferring your key casing. If you didn't quite manage, check the description. Under this video, you'll find our contact information, or you can leave a comment under this video, and then I'll be happy to help you further. Success!